My wife emptied our entire bank account while I was laid up in the hospital, unconscious. The only thing she left behind was a message that read, "I deserve this after everything I've done for you." I didn't argue. Just sent a thumbs up emoji and left it at that. The day they discharged me, I didn't go back to the house. Name's Quentin Parker. I'm 46, and for the past 20 years, I've made my living behind the wheel of an wheeler. It's not flashy, but it paid our bills and let Rachel live the kind of life she wanted, though she never seemed to value any of it. For weeks, I've been feeling this pressure in my chest. Brushed it off as nothing, just stress, too many miles, and bad coffee from truck stops. I kept telling myself it'd pass. It didn't. I was somewhere outside Wichita when the pain got so intense I had to pull over. I called 911 right there from the shoulder of the highway. They ended up airlifting me to Kansas City, Kansas. Turns out it wasn't just a panic attack, it was my heart, and it was giving out. Last thing I remember before blacking out was the doctor leaning over me, saying, "We're losing him." That's not exactly the send-off you want to hear as the lights go out. 2 days later, I came to in a hospital bed, tubes in both arms, a stent in my chest. The nurse told me I'd flatlined twice. Said I was lucky to be alive. I sure didn't feel lucky when I grabbed my phone and saw I had just one message from Rachel. We'd been married 15 years. No kids. Just a house in Kansas City and a long string of quiet dinners during the weeks I was home from the road. The message included a screenshot of our joint bank account. Balance, $0. Below that, she'd typed it again. "I deserve this after everything I've done for you." 61 grand. Gone. That was my emergency stash. The money I set aside for truck repairs. My future. My backup plan. All of it vanished. I should have been furious. Should have thrown something, screamed maybe. Instead, I just stared at the screen, feeling a kind of exhaustion I didn't know existed. Not the kind you sleep off. The kind that lives in your bones. I hit reply, gave her that same thumbs up emoji, and set the phone down. Later that day, the doctor came in and told me I needed to avoid stress. No driving for at least 6 weeks. He asked if someone was coming to pick me up the next morning. I told him yes. That was a lie. That night, I called my brother Mike. He lives across town. We hadn't talked in a while, not because we were mad or anything, just different lives, different rhythms. "I need a favor," I said. "Name it," he answered right away. "I need a place to lay low for a few days, and I need you not to tell Rachel." There was a pause on the line. Then he said, "She doesn't even know you're alive?" "Oh, she knows," I told him. "She just doesn't know I'm not coming back." Rachel and I met years ago at a gas station just outside Cheyenne. She was stranded with a flat, and I pulled over to help. Back then, she looked at me like I was some kind of hero just for knowing how to use a jack. Funny how those little things that seem impressive at first eventually turn into expectations. We tied the knot 6 months later. Fast, sure, but not careless. I was 30, she was 27. Old enough to know better, still young enough to believe it would all work out. She never liked the fact that I was gone 3 weeks out of the month. But she did like the lifestyle the money gave her. I'd call her every night no matter where I was. At first, those calls would go on for an hour or more. As time passed, they got shorter. Updates, check-ins, quick I love yous. Eventually, we stopped talking altogether, just sent the occasional text. Made it to Nashville. All good here. Now that I think about it, the signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. She stopped asking when I'd be back. She'd started going on trips with friends I'd never met before, but I never questioned it. I trusted her. That's what marriage is supposed to be, right? Trust. Mike got me settled into his guest room. He's a construction foreman, works locally, been through 2 divorces, and he's no stranger to people letting you down. "You should eat something," he said, handing me a sandwich. But I wasn't hungry. My mind was stuck on the house I'd bought, thinking about the refinancing I'd done just a few months back when the interest rates dipped. Rachel said she was swamped that day and couldn't make it to the signing, so I took care of it solo. Put the mortgage solely in my name since my credit was stronger anyway. She didn't even ask to look at the paperwork, not once. And then there was the medical power of attorney I had set up last year. That whole idea came after my buddy Tim had a stroke and his girlfriend wasn't allowed to make any decisions for him. It scared the hell out of me. My niece Emily, Mike's daughter and a sharp-as-a-tack law student, helped me draft everything properly. She made sure all the legal stuff was squared away. "Does Rachel know you're here?" Mike asked, sliding the sandwich into my hands. "No," I told him. "And let's keep it that way for now." "She take it all?" he asked. I nodded slowly. What are you planning to do? I took a bite. Couldn't even taste it. Just chewed and swallowed. Doctor says I need rest. So that's the plan for now. But truth be told, I didn't sleep a wink that night. Just lay there, staring up at the ceiling, thinking about all the little red flags I'd brushed off. The way she'd started checking her phone under the dinner table. How she changed passwords on our shared accounts. Told me she was moving money around to chase better interest rates. I'd been blind, but not anymore. 3 days into staying with Mike, I got a text from our neighbor Dean. Haven't seen you in a while. Everything okay? Rachel's got a guy over, figured you should know. I just sat there, holding the phone, letting it hit me. Didn't reply. Just let the silence wrap around it. That afternoon, Mike drove me down to the bank. Not the local branch where everyone knew us. We went to the main office downtown. I asked to speak to someone in fraud. When they brought me into an office, I showed the specialist the text Rachel sent with the empty account screenshot. Told her the whole thing, how I'd been hospitalized, unconscious, and the withdrawals happened while I couldn't do a damn thing about it. She kept her expression professional, face calm, but there was something in her eyes. Maybe pity. Maybe a bit of anger for me. Mr. Parker, she said gently, we can start a fraud investigation. But because this was a joint account, and your wife had equal access, we may not be able to do much. I get it, I said, cutting her off. Still want to try. She nodded and began typing away on her computer. We'll need hospital records verifying your stay, especially documentation showing you were unconscious or otherwise unable to act. Not an issue. And just so you know, if this turns into a criminal matter, law enforcement will get involved. I looked her straight in the eye. I'm aware. On the drive back to Mike's place, we stopped for gas. I stayed in the car while Mike filled up. Through the windshield, I watched a dad walking out of a convenience store with his 2 kids, each holding an ice cream cone. Just regular life, rolling on without a care. Want anything? Mike asked, popping his head in. I shook my head. Back at his house, I made 3 phone calls. First to my dispatcher, letting him know I needed more time off for medical leave. Second, to the credit union where I kept a separate business account, one Rachel never touched. And third, to Tyler, a lawyer friend of Mike's. I need to know where I stand, I told him. The house, the accounts, everything. Tyler agreed to meet the next day. Once I hung up, I pulled out my laptop and logged into a few accounts Rachel didn't even know existed. Investments she'd never asked about. Not because I was keeping secrets, but because she never showed any interest in the financial side of things. That was always my department. While I was checking balances, a new text popped up. From Rachel this time. Where are you? Your truck's not at the depot. Did they tell you I came by? I didn't reply. A minute later, another one came through. Quentin, this is ridiculous. You can't just disappear. We need to talk about this. I set the phone down. Mike glanced over from the kitchen. She finally reaching out? Yeah. You gonna reply? I shut my laptop. Not yet. That evening, I went for a walk through Mike's neighborhood. The sky was clear. Crisp air. Quiet streets. Just me and my thoughts. Even with the city lights, the stars were still visible that night. And for the first time since collapsing in that hospital, my chest wasn't tight. Not physically, at least. While walking, something clicked in my head. I wasn't mad anymore. The hurt was gone too. What was left was something simpler. I was done. And with that came a strange kind of clarity. Rachel didn't just clean out my bank account. She handed me my freedom. A week after they let me out of the hospital, I finally went back to the house. I waited until midday when I knew she'd be at her office job. Let myself in with my own key, like it was just another return from the road. The place felt off the second I walked in. There was a scent, cologne I'd never worn. Empty wine bottles piled in the recycling bin. 2 wine glasses waiting in the dishwasher. I packed a small duffel, clothes, important documents, and the little lockbox from the closet that held my birth certificate and passport. As I walked out, I noticed something missing, the framed photo from our wedding, the one that used to sit on the hallway table. Back at Mike's, I sat down with Tyler, the lawyer. We spread all the paperwork across the kitchen table, going over everything. This house situation's interesting, he said, flipping through the refi documents. Since the refinance is only in your name, and considering you included a medical clause, combined with your recent cardiac event, you've got a good shot at sole possession. What about the money? I asked. Tyler sighed and leaned back. That's murkier. Joint accounts mean shared access. But, he tapped the bank statements, the fact she drained it while you were incapacitated? That could count as financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. especially with proof these were mainly your earnings. I nodded. And the divorce? Well, he said, South Dakota uses equitable distribution. But given everything that's happened, we've got a strong angle to argue in your favor. He started stacking the papers into folders. I'll draft the first round of documents, he added. In the meantime, don't talk to her. If she contacts you, ignore it. All communication comes through me now. The very next day, Rachel showed up at Mike's place. I was alone. Mike was off at work. I heard the sound of her car pulling up but didn't bother looking out the window. The doorbell rang 3 times. Then came the knocking. I know you're in there, Quentin, she called. Your truck's parked just down the street. Her voice was muffled through the door. You can't just hide. We need to talk about this. I didn't move a muscle. Just sat in the living room like a kid playing hide-and-seek. Eventually, the noise stopped. I thought she'd finally left until my phone lit up. I'm sorry about the money. I was angry. You've been distant for months. I thought maybe you were cheating. I saw the refi paperwork and freaked out. We can fix this. Please, just talk to me. It was the first time she'd ever even hinted that I might be the one cheating. Classic case of projection. I flipped the phone over, screen down, and didn't reply. The next day, Tyler called. Rachel got in touch with me, he said. She's hired Linda Powell. That name stopped me cold. Linda Powell, one of the toughest divorce attorneys in the entire state. Known for going after everything, the house, savings, even projected income. What does that mean for us? I asked. It means she's gearing up for war, he said flatly. Powell is already claiming that your absence after the hospital qualifies as abandonment. She's building a case that you're unstable, that you left without warning, and now refuse to communicate. I let out a long breath. So, what's next? We strike first, Tyler said. I filed for an emergency hearing over the withdrawn funds. Judge Edwards is presiding. He doesn't look kindly on people who take advantage of medical emergencies. After we hung up, I just stared at the wall for a while. Then I picked up my phone and called Emily, my niece. I needed her help, something specific I had in mind. Later that evening, I drove by the house. Rachel's car was parked in the driveway, right next to a sleek black Audi I didn't recognize. I circled the block once, didn't stop, just turned around and headed back to Mike's. As I pulled into his driveway, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. This is Linda Powell. I represent Rachel Parker. Any further surveillance of my client will be considered harassment. All future contact must go through legal channels. So now they were watching me while I was watching them. And just like that, the gloves were off. 2 weeks after that first sit-down with Tyler, we had our court date. It was the emergency hearing over the funds Rachel took. She showed up with Linda Powell. Both dressed sharp, professional, ready for battle. I wore the only tie I owned, the same one I kept stashed in my truck for road funerals. Judge Edwards sat at the bench. Older man, white hair, glasses low on his nose. He flipped through the paperwork without much expression, glanced at Rachel, then at me. Finally, he looked up and addressed the room. Miss Powell, he said, your client withdrew the entire contents of the joint accounts while Mr. Parker was hospitalized for a life-threatening cardiac issue. Is that correct? Powell stood. Your Honor, she said, my client had full legal access to those funds. Furthermore, Mr. Parker refinanced the marital home behind her back, putting it in his name alone. That, we argue, was the first act of financial deceit. Judge Edwards removed his glasses slowly. I'm not asking about the house right now, counselor, he said. I asked about the timing of the withdrawal. Did your client know Mr. Parker was in the hospital when she transferred the money? Rachel leaned in, whispered something in Powell's ear. Powell cleared her throat. Yes, Your Honor. But my client was under immense emotional stress. She believed the marriage was ending. She acted to protect herself financially. The judge slid his glasses back onto his face. Unconscious from a heart attack doesn't exactly sound like the moment someone decides to end a marriage, he said, flipping through the stack of documents. I'm freezing the funds for now. Neither of you will have access until we determine ownership in the divorce proceedings. It wasn't a full victory, but it was enough to stop Rachel from draining what was left. As we exited the courtroom, Rachel tried to approach me. Powell caught her by the arm, stopping her, but not before Rachel called out, Quentin, please, there's a lot you don't understand. I walked right past her without turning my head. Outside, Tyler looked content. This is just the start, he said. Now we begin discovery. Discovery? I asked. Yeah, he nodded. That's when both sides have to lay all their cards on the table. A week later, Tyler called me down to his office. When I walked in, there was a folder already waiting for me on the desk. "We found something," he said, sliding it across. Inside was a bank statement from an account I'd never seen before. Rachel's name was right there on it. The balance? $127,340.56. Where the hell did this come from? I asked. Tyler leaned back. Emily found it. Her internship at the credit union downtown gave her some insight. This account was opened about 18 months ago. The deposits are regular, always just under $10,000. I raised an eyebrow. Avoiding the federal reporting limit? He nodded. Classic money-hiding tactic. There's more. The deposit dates? They line up perfectly with your long-haul schedule. Every time you were out on the road, money came in. I sat back in the chair, jaw tight. She's been planning this for a year and a half. Tyler shook his head slowly. I don't think she was planning to leave you, Quentin. I think she was preparing in case you left her. I frowned. Why would I leave her? I was killing myself out there trying to support us. That's when Tyler handed over another document, this time, a credit card statement. A hotel booking in Dallas. The date, 3 months ago. I remember that week clearly. I was in Portland. The name on the reservation? Dean Simmons. Dean, our neighbor. The same guy who texted me about the other man at our place. Tyler's expression darkened. We believe Dean and Rachel have been seeing each other for a while. The Dallas booking is one of several. And we think he was feeding you disinformation to throw off suspicion. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was orchestrated. Rachel playing the part of a faithful wife. Dean pretending to be the watchful neighbor. Meanwhile, they were both lying, both stealing, both taking advantage while I was fighting for my life. I stood up. So what's our move now? Tyler actually smiled, first time I'd seen him do that. That depends on how far you want to take it. But if I were you, I'd make sure they both regret thinking they could pull this off. I spent the next month recovering at Mike's while Tyler tightened the legal screws. We had a clear game plan now: gather evidence, document everything, build the case around financial misconduct and the affair. Emily was a godsend. Her role at the credit union gave us insights we wouldn't have caught on our own. Nothing shady, just connecting dots they'd assumed no one would notice. One more thing, Emily told me one evening, scrolling through records on her laptop. The account has another authorized user. Not a joint owner, but someone with access. Dean? I asked. She nodded. And they've started spreading out the money, transferring smaller amounts to other banks. They know we're on to them, I said, staring out the window. They're liquidating, getting ready to vanish. That night I called Tyler. We need to move faster. I agree, he said. But we have to be smart. If we push too hard too soon, they'll bolt and take everything with them. So what do we do? There was a pause. We need leverage, Tyler said. Something big. Something that makes running look worse than staying. The next day, I drove by the house during Rachel's work hours. I didn't go inside. Instead, I walked the property, snapping pictures of everything new. The shed Dean had helped build last summer. The expensive landscaping that had popped up while I was on a 3-week haul through California. All upgrades, funded by me. All done on a home legally in my name. I texted the pictures to Tyler with one word: documented. 2 days later, Rachel's lawyer called Tyler with a proposal. Rachel was willing to return half the withdrawn money in exchange for 50% equity in the house. They're fishing, Tyler told me over the phone. Trying to see if we'll settle cheap. What do we say? We say nothing. Let them sweat. Meanwhile, I made another move. I called up HR at the trucking company, explained everything that had happened, and asked about the long-term disability insurance I'd been paying into for 2 decades. You're eligible for 60% of your pay for up to a year, the rep explained. Given the severity of your condition and the doctor's restrictions, you qualify easily. I filed the paperwork that very same day. Another stream of income. And Rachel didn't have a clue it existed. It wouldn't show up in any settlement discussions, at least not yet. The following week, I had Mike take me past the house again. That's when I spotted something new. A for sale sign had gone up on Dean's lawn. He's bailing, Mike muttered. I nodded. Call Emily. An hour later, Emily confirmed what we'd feared. Dean had emptied out his accounts 2 days earlier. Nearly $80,000, all withdrawn in cashier's checks. I got Tyler on the phone right away. We've got to act. Dean's selling. Rachel might be planning to leave town with him. Tyler didn't hesitate. I'll file an emergency injunction first thing tomorrow morning. We'll freeze their assets and block any property sales unless the court approves them. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Rachel. We need to talk. Just us. No attorneys. I showed it to Mike. They're getting nervous, he said. I gave a slight nod. Good. I forwarded the message to Tyler, who replied right away. Don't engage. Injunction hearing is set for 2 p.m. By 1:30, I was walking up to the courthouse when I spotted Rachel and Dean in the parking lot. They were arguing, clearly heated. They hadn't seen me. I took out my phone and quietly filmed them from a distance. Just 30 seconds, but it was enough. Footage that clearly showed they weren't just neighbors. The kind of evidence they carefully avoided bringing into court. Inside, Tyler was already waiting. I showed him the video. Perfect timing, he said with a grin. Judge Edwards is already in a bad mood today. I adjusted my tie. Then let's not keep him waiting. The judge's chambers were much smaller than the main courtroom. Just Edwards, the 2 attorneys, Rachel, and me. Dean wasn't present. He wasn't legally part of the divorce case. The video played on the judge's computer. No sound, but the body language spoke volumes. When it ended, Judge Edwards turned toward Rachel's lawyer. Miss Powell, he said, how do you explain your client's sworn statements that she has no relationship with this neighbor when this video suggests otherwise? Powell looked visibly shaken. Your Honor, we believe the nature of their relationship isn't relevant to the financial case at hand. The judge's tone sharpened. It is when we're discussing possible financial fraud. Then he turned directly to Rachel. Mrs. Parker, are you planning to leave the state with Mr. Simmons? Rachel's face went completely pale. I don't. Let me put it another way, the judge continued. There is evidence before this court that you and Mr. Simmons have moved large sums of money, that Mr. Simmons is selling his property, and that you personally withdrew funds while your husband was incapacitated. That pattern points toward an attempt to flee. He looked to both attorneys. Effective immediately, I'm freezing all assets connected to both Rachel Parker and Dean Simmons. Neither may leave the county without court approval. Then he turned to me. Given Mr. Parker's recent medical condition and the financial misconduct that occurred during his recovery, I'm granting him temporary exclusive use of the marital home. Rachel let out a quiet, strangled sound. Your Honor, Powell began. But Judge Edwards raised a hand to cut her off. This court takes the exploitation of a medically vulnerable spouse very seriously, counselor. Frankly, you're lucky I'm not referring this for criminal investigation. Tyler calmly gathered the paperwork, doing his best not to look too pleased. As we stepped out of the chambers, Rachel caught my eye. For the first time, I saw something that had been missing since this started. She wasn't angry. She wasn't smug. She was scared. Not of me, of consequences. 3 months after that day in the ER, I moved back into our house. My house now. The divorce wrapped up faster than anyone expected. After the injunction hearing, Rachel didn't fight. Dean vanished, left her behind to deal with the fallout on her own. When the dust settled, the judge granted me the house, my truck, and 80% of our savings. Rachel walked away with her car and the remaining 20%. That hidden account? It got split down the middle, but not before my legal fees were paid out of her portion. I never spoke to her again. Not directly. Everything went through our attorneys. Last I heard, she moved to Dallas. Maybe trying to start over. Maybe trying to forget. 6 months later, I sold the house. Too many ghosts in the walls. I bought a smaller place closer to Mike and Emily. Gave Emily a chunk of the money to help cover law school. She's going to be one hell of a lawyer one day. I don't drive long haul anymore. Doctor says my heart can't handle the stress. So now I dispatch. Set the routes. Manage the logistics. Home every night. It's quieter than the road, but there's comfort and stability. People ask me sometimes if I'm still angry about what happened. I'm not. Not anymore. You don't get to choose what people do to you, but you sure as hell get to decide how you respond. Rachel thought she'd taken everything from me the day I was lying in that hospital bed. What she really did was force me to stand up for myself in a way I never had before. Last week, I was digging through some boxes in the garage and came across our wedding album. Thought about tossing it, but I didn't. Just closed it up and put it back where I found it. It's part of my story now. Not the whole thing. Just a chapter. The heart attack nearly killed me. The betrayal nearly broke me. But I'm still here. Different. Wiser. Stronger, I think. Some lessons hurt like hell, but they stay with you. Some people, once they're gone, you realize they needed to be. And sometimes, just sometimes, the life you rebuild ends up better than the one you lost.